right, welcome. My name is Anup Deshpande. I work here at CyberSource, which is part of Lisa. And I'm really happy to see each one of you here. This forum is actually made up of people like you who are passionate about attending this meetup and suggesting a lot of good things to the meetup, and of course commute all the way from wherever you have come from. I've seen people coming from Brentwood or San Francisco and Monterey Bay, like literally 2.5 hours. It's way too much, but they do. So that's just the love that keeps us going. There are a lot of good things about this forum. There's no advertisements, there's no sales, nothing. It's all about great content, good participation, and great, exercises, group exercises and stuff like that. On top of that, if you happen to be a PMP or a PMI ACP from PMI, these are certifications, you get 2 PDUs just for coming here, attending, and participating. Ask me offline, how do you get your PDUs? If you are a Scrum certified practitioner, CSP, you get 2 SEUs as well, because we are authorized group of Scrum Alliance. So if you go to their website, you'll be able to locate us. So, so this forum, so we start now, we end at about 8:15. We go from now until about 7 o'clock. We take a break for 15 minutes. We come back. We do lightning talks. I invite 3 people to come here, talk 3 minutes with a countdown, 3 minutes, and share your Agile experience, good, bad, whatever you have at your current workplace, past workplace, whatever. And we'd love to have that sharing with everyone here. So if you have a suggestion, you can contact me during the break, write down your name on a sticky note with your title, topic title, and there you go. I already have 1 entry, so 2 more to go. Rush. That's a great way to participate. Come here, share your experience. So everyone else gets not just some good glimpse about this topic tonight, but also something more for 6 more minutes. So that's something good. Over there, you see my colleague, Smita. Hey, Smita. Great. Thank you for your volunteering. So there are 4 boards there. You'll see takeaways as one of them. You have sticky notes as well as the permanent markers. Go write those takeaways there whenever you get one. Okay. You don't have to wait for it to finish. You don't have to wait for it to get to a break. You just can walk and put your takeaway as soon as you get one. Job board, that's something that we added as part of your input to us. People usually show up here to upgrade their careers or to get another job. And we want to have that encouragement here. So if you're a job seeker, put your business card there, or your name, contact information, the kind of job you're looking for. And if there are opportunities in your company that you're looking for, like good people, they're right here in front of you. So write that down here. If you can meet each other, great. If not, this picture will be posted on the event so that you can see and contact later. And the third one is the retrospective. The retrospective is to collect information from you towards the end of the event. How did you like it? Like the content, speaker, overall, everything that goes on here, and you have a chance to change. So a couple months later, you can see your suggestions come through that. And I personally learn a lot from that retrospective. So that's the reason. So with that, let me introduce our speaker. I'm really super excited about the speaker tonight, because it's not just theoretical. We want something experiential. We want something that can really kick our brains to go do something creative, something innovative. And this is one of those topics that I love, because it's actually happening. It's practical. It's right now working at one of our neighboring companies called Intuit, right here in Mountain View. So this is something that that I love about this topic, that it's not from the book. It's something that's implemented for over 8,000 people all across the globe. And great to have Ian here, who has actually implemented it as an enterprise Agile coach there. And I hear, he didn't even write it there, but I hear that he has also experienced at different many other companies, but one of them is Gap, because one of the colleagues came to me and said, say hi to Ian, and I've worked with him at Gap. So maybe we can get a sneak peek at his experience from there as well. And thank you, Jennifer, to show up here as well. She has come from Intuit as well, and looks like. And
she didn't want to.
He's going to write it here.
That's right.
There you go. Perfect. So great to have both of you here, and great to have yourself here to talk with about your experience and all the stories that you want to share here.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you. Hold the applause. You might shred that later. We'll see how it goes. So thank you very much for that introduction, and thanks for turning out. I know there was a bit of traffic chaos out there tonight, as there always is in this area. So what I'm going to do today is maybe pull off a little bit of a miracle magic trick here. And we're going to talk a little bit about innovation, a lot about innovation. We're going to talk a little bit about Agile and Intuit. Also going to give you a little bit of a culture lesson, a bit of geography lesson, and then we'll get to the exam at the end. So, strap yourselves in. Here we go. Everybody ready? Can I ask that again? Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right. So let me just first tell you what I'm about, where I'm coming from. And just to give you a sort of warning here, this is going to be on the exam at the end. So I half jest there. There's some things on this slide I want you to pay a little attention to. We're going to use them a little later. So first of all, what you need to know about me is I'm a bit of a nerd, right? A technology nerd, and I love everything about technology. I talk funny because I'm from down under, specifically New Zealand. That's the Kiwis, not the kangaroos. Okay, so that's an important distinction there. And if you do manage to get, this is the culture part of the lesson, if you do manage to get down to New Zealand, you walk into a restaurant and you order your breakfast, this is not a kiwi. This is a kiwi fruit. Be careful what you ask for in a New Zealand restaurant, okay? The kiwi is that little brown thing, very sad-looking national bird that we have right below there. And I'm going to stay on the side of the blue tape. And kiwis are also the people, all right? So kiwis are the people, and the birds, not the fruit. Okay, so this is the geography part of the lesson. New Zealand is down there, all right? There's a whole meme on the internet about maps without New Zealand. They're just like, that's too much trouble. We're just going to drop that sucker off. And so we often get big up and out, but New Zealand's down there. And this technology nerd starts his career in New Zealand as a developer. I went to work for the Nielsen company. You may know them as the TV ratings people here in the US. I specifically worked for the retail tracking division of Nielsen in New Zealand. And I'm a happy programmer, writing the code and in control of my own sort of life and destiny, and I had all sorts of fun Agile experiences there I won't get to today. But over the course of this career, what I found was I worked for many different Nielsen divisions, and something went wrong along the way there. I found myself in management. Right? So then I'm sort of managing people, and I'm spending less time writing code, less time in control. And and I'm holding all these grand job titles like director of global this and vice president of that and and I realized that I had to change my sort of passion area. And what I became passionate about was not managing teams, but unlocking those teams, empowering those teams, and then getting out of their way. Right? And that's really what I really am passionate about. I was global this and global that. These are the countries that I either led teams in, worked with teams in, and there's a dramatic cultural divide across many of these locations. do the unlocking bit. Push the decision making and the empowerment down to where the team is. So somewhere along the way there, I found myself living in San Francisco. So you think my accent's funny now, you should have been here in 2001 when I came here. And my wife laughs because I went to McDonald's and I asked for a Big Mac. And the person at McDonald's is like, huh? Big Mac? My wife says, he wants a Big Mac. So, oh, Big Mac. I don't know. I thought it was English, but I guess I'm not quite there yet. As I mentioned, I went on, I worked with Nielsen for a while in the US. Went on to lead the engineering team for Nielsen Online. And then later on went to work with Gap. Hands up who worked with me at Gap. Gap's a very agile company, lots of locations again. I spent a lot of time in the airports, is what I'm saying. But here's what we're going to talk about today. A few years after I worked at Gap, I took an opportunity to lead the Agile program at Intuit. And today we're going to talk about this program. We're going to talk about Intuit Agile and some of the challenges that we have with it and what we did with it through innovation. So let's start with Vista 5. Who knows what Vista 5 is? A few of you. So Vista 5 works like this. I'm going to ask you a question, specifically that one. You are going to make a decision on how much that question resonates with you. How well does your organization deal with innovation? If you feel like they nail it, they're absolutely super innovative, you're a 5, right? If you feel like, what's innovation? Nobody ever talked to me about that at my company, you're a 0 or a 1. You could be somewhere in the middle there. We're going to do this all at the same time. So 1, 2, 3, show me. You're going to hold up the number of fingers. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, show us. Right? Now, as much as you're showing me, I also want you to look around at the people near you, right? Get a sense of how they feel about innovation in their organizations. And now what I want you to do is keep your hand held up, and I want you to give a high five to the person next to you, or the people next to you, right? Right? Those people that you just gave a high five to are your team tonight. And if you just high five yourself, we'll find a team member before you, don't worry. Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about Intuit, because I think it sort of leads us to where we need to get to. Intuit, this is the old slide. It's got our wrong second on it. I apologize for that. But you don't know, so just trust me, it's good. These are our products that you might be familiar with, or some of them. Intuit has been around for a while. And we have about 7,500-ish to 8,000 employees, lots of locations around the world. There's a lot going on, suffice it to say, in a lot of different locations. This is the slide that the comms people at Intuit tell me to put up here. We're awesome, right? They just don't want me to tell you that. But specifically, what we're going to be talking about and focusing on today is this right-hand one. Rated as one of the most innovative companies out there. And we're going to specifically talk about what is it at Intuit that we're doing that makes us in this sort of category.
But this was in 2013.
Yeah, we failed since then. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what happened in 2013. It's gone completely downhill since then. No. Yeah, right, I'm going to talk to them about that, make the comms people stop making me put that up there. All right, so we're going to talk about Intuit Agile, because we're going to apply innovation to Intuit Agile. So what is Intuit Agile? Well, let's talk about Agile and Intuit first. Been doing Agile largely since 2007. So we're about 10 years into this right now. There are hundreds of teams scattered around various of those 24, 27 locations around the world. I think we're up to now. And we don't necessarily try and go in and force Agile in the same flavor into every team. We offer that through this playbook model. Playbook model lets teams customize how they apply Agile in the organization, hopefully to a great degree, but still offer certain levels of consistency across the organization. We rallied the program around 12 Agile principles, not anything that we made up, but the 12 Agile principles. They're focused on delivering 6 primary outcomes. We'll get to that in a second. And we wrap all that up under one program called the Intuit Agile program. Okay? So this is the vision statement of Intuit Agile. Deliver world-class agility through enterprise-wide adoption of Agile principles. Now, if you unpack that a little bit, the bottom part of that statement is about us doing the Agile. But be clear, that's not the point. The point is not doing Agile or being Agile. The point is to use Agile to deliver agility, okay? These are the 12 Agile principles, right? Again, not the ones we invented, but the original 12 Agile principles we're largely rallying around. I'm not going to go through them. And so if we take those 12 principles and we say that they're backed up by many practices, right? So things like Scrum sprints or storyboards or story estimation, Agile flight crews, all these other things that we bring to bear in support of those Agile principles, and then we map those up to the 6 outcomes that we expect to deliver through adopting Agile, right? And that's the so-called agility outcomes or the Agile outcomes, and those are the 6, right? So we expect our people will be happier if they're more Agile, they will have higher quality, they will be more predictable in terms of their deliverables, they will get there faster, time to market, be more productive along the way as they get there, and then ultimately deliver more satisfaction to customers. That's what we care about. Now, quite happy to sort of cross off that word Agile and write business, right? These are business outcomes as well. So let's do that. And then the business outcomes lead us to the company's fundamental True North goals. And so these are the stated True North goals of Intuit, supported by those agility outcomes, which are in turn supported through and mapped up from those Agile practices. Right? So this is what our program is all about. Okay. So if you missed it in that prior statement, we said deliver world class, right? We really, really, really want the best. We'll talk about whether we're there or not. We're not. But we're getting there, right? We're edging towards that as our ideal outcome. What does that mean? Well, it means something like this. It means that if we started at a not Agile state, 0 out of 100, and then we started doing Agile, introducing Agile to the teams, those teams would start doing Agile, right? And doing Agile is very much about the, going through the motions. It says this in the book, that's what we do, because it says so, right? So we're doing it. Eventually, teams start to realize, well, why are we doing this practice? What's the purpose of this, and how does it help us go towards those outcomes? Those teams are starting to be Agile, right? So you're doing Agile, you're starting to then be Agile, and eventually, as you approach the sort of elite end of agility, we describe that actually, interestingly, as beyond Agile. Right? If you went to the teams that are beyond Agile and say, what do? They use all these words, and they're very elite in their delivery, but they don't use the words Agile or Scrum or anything like that, because they've sort of gone beyond that. So we roughly describe this, and I'll put this in a different way. Who's familiar with Shuhari? Anybody know Shuhari? A few of you? Who's watched Karate Kid, the original movie? More of you? Okay. So remember Karate Kid? When he says, paint the fence, wax on, wax off, right? That's doing Agile, right? That's the shoe of Shuhari, right? Do it because I told you to do it. Okay, I'm painting the fence, I'm waxing off. Eventually he gets annoyed with the, what's his name, Miyagi. And he says, no, I'm sick of this. And then Miyagi says, okay, fine, put that down. And he goes to attack him. And he's starting to realize, oh, I can do this, because you wax on myself and I'm using that as my defense. So those are the being Agile. And eventually beyond Agile is you are Miyagi, right? You're in that zone. So that's the way we think of it. And when we say world class, right, I drew this arbitrary curve, don't worry, there's no math or science behind this one, but it's over there somewhere, right? It's to the right. And here's the thing that we are trying to get our heads around, and here's the thing that we innovated on. Where are we? Right? Where are we, and are we world class yet? Right? That's what keeps me awake at night. Not really, but pretend that it does. Okay, so how agile are we? We actually have a way to assess that. Right? We have a way to guide our teams through that. It's a sort of crude but effective tool. And by the way, you can download it there, and I'll give you that URL at the end, so you can grab it if you're interested. It's just an Excel sheet. It's a tool for the team to use to kind of have a self-conversation. It's not a dashboarding tool for leadership or anything like that, but it essentially runs them through and looks at the practices and shows them the practices that align to those outcomes, and they can say, hey, we want to focus on quality. Great, here are the practices. Assess yourself against those and choose the practices that you want to do. And that's great, right? You have a way to assess maturity. Awesome. We're good. But here's the problem. You know, we have teams that do the maturity assessment, and the feedback is, wow, we're not world class here, right? Some of our teams are, some of them are beyond Agile, and many are not, right? So we're not there yet. So this brings us to the problem in our innovation part of this. How can we help these teams become more agile, become being agile, beyond the agile state? And this is where I'd like to introduce you to this concept of design for delight. Design for delight is the core of Intuit's innovation process, right? It's about this process. And what it is essentially three main components, right? The first component is about deep customer empathy, understand the customer. Second one is about generating lots of ideas. And the last one is about going to the experiments. Right? So deep customer empathy is making sure that you just don't have a theory about what the customer seems to want based on anecdotal evidence. You're getting inside their head. You're following them home, and you're interviewing them, and you're formulating the start of a problem statement that this customer had, or many problem statements. Now, then you're going to take these problem statements and you're going to start to generate ideas. Right? And we say, to discover that one idea, you first have to start with lots of ideas and then bring that back and narrow them down to figure out which idea you're going to start with. And even that idea can then sort of spawn other ideas about where you're going to go from there, and you come back and you narrow. Right? Now, eventually, once you've honed in on the one idea, you are now going to get into the business of validating it, making sure that this idea has merit, understanding that as quickly as possible, focusing on the customer and the value, and seeing if that's really solving their problem. Right? Measuring what they do is better than listening to what they do. So we don't survey the customers and say, if this is a good idea, we actually move into an actual experiment with them. We're going to go through these and unpack these. Okay, now there's lots of D3 tools that we use. This is just a handful of them. Some of these are available on our Intuit's lab site. And you can get them there, but there's also a lot of very similar tools out there in the industry, so don't get too hung up on these are the special Intuit ones. Today I'm going to sort of use three of these, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about this idea of the customer safari. We're going to talk about this idea of narrowing, how we one technique for doing that. And then we are going to walk through the next tool that we use for experimentation. Okay? So let's start with this one. Deep customer empathy using a customer safari. Now, a common term that we use within Intuit for this is a follow me home. So we follow the customer home, not in a creepy way, depending on who you are in the company and what your customer is, but we actually want to engage directly with the customer. And just like these guys are doing here on the Jeep, they're observing the customer in their environment. Right? They're not getting in their face, they're not suggesting solutions and pitching ideas or anything like that. They're simply going in there, trying to understand what the customer's pain point is in this problem space. And you're going to practice this in a little bit. Okay, so the way this works is you arrange with the customer, hey, I noticed that you're a small business owner or whatever it is. Would you mind if we came and just sort of observe some of the challenges that you have around problem space A or problem space B or whatever it is? And we'd like to do that where you are. So we don't want you to come to our office. We don't want you to artificially, do this on your computer if you normally do it on your phone. So literally, if you, pay your bills, I was going to say while sitting on the toilet, but let's not go there. Sitting on the couch, all right, then that's where we want to be with you. We want to be there watching you sit on the couch in your living room, paying your bills with your phone. Right? And we're going to observe, and in some cases explore, but again, we're not trying to get them to a conclusion. We're not trying to suggest that, oh, well, your problem is obviously blah, and if you just did this, have you tried doing that, right? That's not the point of this. The point of this is simply to gather data. And we actually, we do this all the time at the company. And as part of that, we might even, ask them if we can take pictures. Can we snap a photo of you? Okay with that? And if they're not, obviously we wouldn't. But we want to sort of get into their world. Right? So these are the sorts of things that we're going to capture as part of a Follow Me Home or a customer safari. Who is it that we're talking to, right? Not just Ian, right? It's Ian. He's a small business owner. There's a sort of persona description there about what Ian is all about, and specifically, the unique situation that he has. What is Ian trying to do? What is he trying to do, and what is he trying to accomplish? And as he's doing that, what's the problem that he faces in trying to achieve that thing that he's trying to do? And even if it's surprising to you, that's okay. You're going to keep mum about it. I'll give you a good example. We've been doing these Follow Me Homes across the company. I went to a Follow Me Home with a couple of my team members, and we interviewed this guy who was he was a real estate agent, and he used our QuickBooks self-employed app that tracked receipts and mileage. Right? And the way that you are supposed to use that app is that you have a receipt and you take a photo of it, and then it automatically takes care of it or uploads it and scans it and all that kind of stuff. And this guy loved the mileage tracking with his car part of the app, and he used that all the time. But when it came time to receipts, he didn't like that. Right? What he did is he took a photo of the receipt. He went home and he plugged his phone into the computer. He uploaded it to the web version of our software, and then did it through that, which was so many extra steps, which was like, that's ridiculous. But during the Follow Me Home, you don't say that. You're not going to say, that's ridiculous. You should do this, because he's doing that for a reason, and we're going to try to explore why he was doing that. Is it because he doesn't trust the software? Is it because he doesn't understand how to do it? And so we're going to sort of probe on that. And that's the explore part of this. So it's the what, what is the problem, where is it occurring, when is it occurring during his process there. Sort of speculate why it may be occurring, why are you doing it like that, without passing judgment. And then how do you get around that? Do you get around that? Is there a workaround or is there not? Okay, so now is your chance. Right? You're going to turn to your partner. I'd like you to do this with twos if you can. If not, you can do it maybe in groups of three. But yeah, see if you can find a partner for this. And what we're going to do is you are now going to be playing two roles here. The first role is you're an employee of Kiwi Art Inc. And Kiwi Art Inc. is a design company that specializes in art, specifically Kiwi art. Right? Whatever that word means to you, remember from the earlier exam question. They are well known for quickly making unique, right? So they don't stamp out the same thing again and again and again. Colorful, lots of different colors, funny depictions of only Kiwis, right? Whatever that means to you. Now, one of you is going to be the new employee at Kiwi Art Inc. And you are going to spend let's say 3 minutes generating Kiwi art. The other one of you is going to be the observer. You are following home this new employee who's on day one of their job at Kiwi Art, and you're going to watch what they do. Watch where their challenges are, right? Not passing judgment, just thinking about some of these things, all right? And then we're going to swap and we're going to repeat. So this is the first round. There's two up there. I'll give you three, right? So pick a partner, right? Choose who's going to start. We'll swap and we both get to do this each way, right? So who's going to be the employee, who's going to be the observer? And then what I want you to do is the employee is going to start generating the Kiwi art using the post-its and the pens that are available to you, right? And I want you as the observer to think about, all right, I've already answered the first question, who you're trying to observe, right? The day one new employee, right? What are they trying to do? Right? They're trying to do the thing that we said, but you might see that they're trying to do something else, so just note that down. Do they have problems as they're doing this? Are there any challenges? sort of note down what you're thinking, what you're observing there. And do you see when this problem is occurring? Is it when they start? Is it when they finish? Is it somewhere else? And you speculate, why is it that? Ask a sort of exploratory question. What are you doing there, and why are you doing that, and stuff like that, right? Or you can just watch them and see what they do. Okay? So just start thinking about that and really try and get in their head, but don't pass judgment, right? You're not trying to be the artist. Okay? So here we go. Pick a partner and grab your art materials, and off we go. All right, so you got 3 minutes to do that.
Oops, sorry, I'm a partner.
The temptation was to go online and look up a picture of a kiwi and try and draw it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. All right, well, one of us has to draw a TV and one has to observe. Oh, I will be observing.
Give me observer, okay. And also like the red pen.
So I guess that makes sense.
Keep going, make as many.
Where's the problem?
All right.
It could be either one.
Marginal, yeah.
You want to switch off? How many?
That would be a problem. I like how you get the first.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so that's the end of the 3 minutes. Now what I want you to do now is swap, right? I want you to now switch roles, and I want you to now be the observer if you were the artist, and vice versa. Now, one thing I want you to be conscious of this time is, particularly if you were the artist in the previous iteration, you may have some built-in biases here, because you've done this before. Just like when we send our engineers out to talk to people about our apps, guess what? They've probably used them before. They probably have certain perspectives on that, and they're itching to say, "Oh, don't do it like that." It's much easier to draw it like that. So be careful of that, and really think about your own biases when you're engaging with your customer and your observing. Okay, so let's do that again. So you have 3 minutes to switch that and do that. And then we'll have an art competition to see who do the best kiwi. See how that goes.
Zealand? What part of New Zealand?
All parts, but most of it went there.
Oh, okay. You've been
But
to Cora?
I grew up all over.
Cora?
I mean, it was not Okay, so now you've generated many unique Kiwi works of art. Let's have a little debrief on this one. Let's see how much attention you were paying earlier. So as I said, the Kiwis are the people and the bird, not the fruit, not the kangaroos. But maybe you wandered into any of those dangerous areas. This is a picture of a traditional sort of Kiwi farmer with sheep. It's all sheep and hobbits down there in New Zealand. So if you've also drawn some hobbits, that's fine as well. All right. So what did you discover there? All right. What surprised you in that exercise, particularly as observers, when you're observing?
The questions. I'm a new employee. I've already been hired.
Yeah.
I know what the job is. Maybe not. But as an employee, as an observer, I observed a new employee asking, "What should I do?"
Ah, okay. And what did you take away from that?
Either there was a gap between what they were hired for and what they were being presented to do.
Okay. Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. What else?
The employee is looking for resources and trying to find out, where the resources are, like in terms of different color pencils and stuff like that.
So the problem was they didn't have enough colors or enough materials to work on. What other problems did you observe? Yeah.
We don't know what Kiwis eat.
You don't know what Kiwis eat, right? So we're trying to draw a ravenous carnivore Kiwi. Okay. Yeah.
Uncertainty about what Kiwi is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which Kiwi am I drawing? Am I drawing the bird? Am I drawing the I was going to say the fruit. Am I drawing the person? Or am I drawing a kangaroo? Do I even know what a Kiwi is? What else? What problems did you observe your artists having?
Information gap. Just
Info-
like you shared.
In terms of what am I supposed to be doing here? Do I have did the employee have enough training or whatever it is? Okay. Anything else?
The
Okay.
word humorous, that could be very much interpreted in
Sorry, what was the business?
humorous. What's meant by humorous?
Oh, humorous, yeah. What's funny, and what's funny to me versus the employee versus the customer? So again, sort of getting that definition. Do they have enough information? Yeah.
Physical limitations in the size of the paper was very small.
Yeah, all I got is these little post-its, but I'm a big paper artist, and that's what I'm all about. And yeah, absolutely. Anything that you saw there that was a surprise, or were these all sort of problems that you probably were predicting or thinking about already? Anybody surprised pleasantly or negatively by anything?
Pretty tough job.
It's a tough job. Yeah, right. Being an artist is not easy. You draw like I do. Yeah.
Surprised that each of us actually saw Kiwi as a different thing.
Yeah, different perspectives of what a Kiwi is, and when you're sitting there going, well, of course I know what a Kiwi is. That's this, but somebody else is different. We have another one. Yeah.
I was working with Ann Audubon, who can draw birds in the course of a moment.
Yeah. Well, good. You were pleasantly surprised with the talents of your team. Yeah, awesome. So,
Excuse me, I wonder if you were to, have you ever done this exercise where you asked people to do this with a marketing mind? Like if you were to promote Kiwi
yeah.
from this company, how would you pick that?
Yeah. Sure. No, I haven't, but yeah, it's an interesting perspective. All right, so what we're trying to come out of this with, having sort of got into the heads of our artists and our day one employees, is we're trying to formulate this into a place to start solving for it, to start innovating on. And what we want to do is to generate a customer problem statement, or many of those. And customer problem statements look like this, right? I am a day one employee at Kiwi Art Inc. I am trying to, but this is happening because here's why it's happening, which makes me feel in a certain way. So what I'd like you to do is grab a Post-it and take a stab at that statement for being a day one employee. So I am a day one employee at Kiwi Art. I am trying to, whatever it is that you see the employee trying to do, and then try and capture one of those problems in this format. And if you have many, even better. Right? So we don't try and get to just one problem statement, we're trying to get to several problem statements that we can start troubleshooting against. Okay, does anybody have one to share? I don't want to rush you, but we'd like to share their problem statement. Yeah, what do you got?
I'm a day one employee. I'm trying to do my first assignment, but there are no visual guides to follow because I can't access the web, which makes me feel like I haven't been set up for success.
Right, great one. Yeah. Awesome. Who else? Who else has got one they want to share? Yeah.
I'm trying to draw a green and brown fruit
Yeah.
with green and black pens,
Ah.
because that's all that we're supplying.
That's all we
And
got.
I feel inadequate as an artist.
I feel, yeah, limited. Yeah, great. Couple more? Yeah, what do you got?
I'm trying to draw a kiwi so that it doesn't look like,
So it doesn't look like a chicken, but
but I don't have, it's all brown, so I don't know how to make it color.
okay, all right, okay. So you're calling out a couple of things there, right? There's mix. Be careful mixing the problem statements. So one is a problem around the colourful, and one is a problem around your ability to draw in on Kiwi chicken. I don't know if I'm interpreting that correctly. And so sometimes we're going to see these very heavily loaded problem statements. I'm trying to do this and this and this. but I can't because of this and this and this and this. And so we might sort of lead towards breaking those problem statements down and not trying to build too much into one. But I'm sorry, I'm just using you as an example of that. So that's good. One more. Let's do one more. Yeah, what do you got over here?
I'm a new employee and I'm trying to draw this character,
Yeah.
but I haven't been given enough information,
Yeah.
which makes me feel really vulnerable
Yeah.
and not feeling like I've accomplished anything.
Yeah, and that last statement, which makes me feel, is really trying to get you into their head, right? Like, it's easy to observe and it's like, oh, they're a thing and they're doing this thing and da-da-da-da. But if you start explaining how they feel about that, right, when we talk about delight, right, we're attacking that feeling. We're attacking this idea that they're frustrated. And if they're no longer frustrated, they're much more likely to be delighted than if they just, now that they couldn't do this thing and now they can. You know what I mean? Did you want to, you had your hand up, I'll give you, share your one.
As a day one employee of QBRs, I'm trying to draw QBRs, but I have no clue what to draw that would be useful because there was no orientation, which makes me feel I'm not a value here.
Right, no orientation for the day one employee. I just got dumped in the deep end and now I'm feeling, what was the feeling?
I'm not valued.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not valued enough to be bothered to orientate me, right? So now you're starting to really get a sense of how these day one employees are feeling, right? They've been dropped into the deep end with limited to no materials, no guidance, no orientation. There's some real problems there that we could explore and start to solve for Kiwi Inc. If you make sense, if you do that. All right, so let me come back to our problem. It's always about me, right? Like let's about my problem for a second, and let's get your problem. All right, so back to our world-class agility problem. So remember, we're not there yet, right? Our teams are not quite as agile as they perhaps want to be, or at least some of our teams aren't. And so, before I dive into the problem statement of that, I'd like to introduce you to the components of the Intuit Agile program. Because when we start talking about a customer problem, we don't start necessarily with a completely blank page. We're going to start looking at an area that we want to explore. So this is the components of the Intuit Agile program. At the top is the governance tier. So this is where the vision and the strategy and the Agile leadership team and some of the things live up there. The blue boxes are sort of the products and services that we offer to Intuit teams. So we can come in and help them assess their team, like the Intuit Agile maturity assessment. Talent is about job descriptions and recruiting and helping them get the top Agile talent into their teams. Learn is a combination of our certification education framework, so it's a lot of training, workshops, and some other things that live in there. Coaching is us sending in Agile coaches and doing some other things here. Supporting is a bunch of tooling and metrics and things that live there. Content is our wiki, where we host all of our materials. Communities is us trying to foster a level of energy around Agile across the company, so community events, email blasts, Slack channels, that kind of thing. And preferred partners is us working with vendors and aligning them with our way of thinking around Agile, making sure that we're picking the best quality partners. And external Agile is about us projecting Agile outside the company. You're looking at that right now, right? So this is an example of us doing external Agile. And it's really because we want to get out there, not just to share our stuff, but we also want to learn from you. So as much as we go out and speak at the conferences, we're attending and we're talking and we're listening to you and bringing that back and enhancing our program. All right, so that's what external Agile is all about. That's why I drag these guys to come. Okay, so today, what we're going to focus on in our problem statement is in this box. It's about the coaching. Right, so we feel there's a customer problem around coaching. And here's the problem. We don't have any, or we have very few, right? So the blue box represents the number of teams at Intuit, give or take. The green box represents how many Agile coaches we have at Intuit, right? Not many, and many organizations face this challenge as well, right? We don't have enough coaches for all the teams, or as many as our teams would perhaps like. So if I was going to translate that into one of these problem statements, I'm going to say it like this. I am an Agile team at Intuit, right? I'm trying to deliver those outcomes, not be more Agile, but to deliver those optimal outcomes using Agile. But But some of our Agile practices leave a lot to be desired, and we're not making the forward progress that we would hope in order of shifting that curve from the not Agile, doing Agile, being Agile, beyond Agile. Okay, and that's because our theory here is we don't have access to Agile coaching. You know, and so we go and talk to teams and we ask them what's holding you back, and they're like, well, we tried to get a coach and there wasn't any, and blah, 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 right? Which makes them feel frustrated and not supported, right? And that Intuit's not serious about investing in them and their Agile. Okay, so this is the problem statement that we started with, right? When we put together this problem. And the next thing that we do is this thing called go broad to go narrow. So we've got that problem statement. You may have multiple problem statements, but you're going to start with one of them that you've decided is the key one now. And we're going to try that now. Now, we're at 7. I'm just checking with Noob. Did you want to break now and we can get back to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that.
Cool. All right.
I may or may not come up.
Great creative way to come up with a problem statement. All right, so now we have some kiwis for our break. Cool. All right, so let's take a break for 15 minutes. So let's get started with our lightning talks. Lightning talk is a 3-minute talk by anyone in the audience with a topic. So I got 3 topics. The very first one is by my friend Ron Lichty. He is author of more than 1 book, 2 books? 5 books, there you go. Okay, 5 books. And he has been a guest here as well at this meetup. So he wanted to present some slides. No slides are needed, so don't worry about slides for the other 2. But please welcome Ron. Warning, 2 minutes and 1 minute there.
So can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm Ron Lichty. I've spent about 30 years thinking about and focusing on making software development problems. And over the course of that, in 1999, I ran across XP for the first time. I discovered Scrum in 2002, and I've been coaching teams, managing teams, training teams in Agile ever since. I have for probably a decade and a half been running stand-ups, been coaching teams to do stand-ups. About 2 years ago, it occurred to me to ask the question, is there a correlation between stand-ups and high-performance teams? So some of you know me for my 5th book, Managing the Unmanageable, Rules, Tools, and Insights for Managing Software People and Teams, one of the very few books on managing software developers and software development teams. Others of you know that I'm the co-author of the study of product team performance, where we query members of product teams all over the world to ask them, characterize your performance for us. Are you high performance, are you low performance, are you somewhere in between? And then tell us about your practices. And some of you may have been here in January when I reported on the correlation between definitions of done and high performance teams, and specifically definitions of done that are created inside your own team and high performance teams. So as I said, it occurred to me 2 years ago to ask the question, is there a correlation between stand-ups and high performance teams? And these are the results of thousands of people around the world on product teams. The good news is that 80% of respondents said that stand-ups are an effective and regular part of their product development process. The bad news is that about half of those aren't holding them regularly. They're holding effective ones, but not regularly. And only about a quarter are holding them daily. And then the really bad news is the 1 out of 5. 7.6% say they're contentious and a waste of time, and 11.4% said they're ineffective. Now then we took that and correlated that with what teams told us about their performance. Product teams that do not hold stand-ups or hold ineffective stand-ups perform worst.
Yes.
Product teams with stand-ups that are effective and regular perform better. Product teams with stand-ups that are effective and daily perform best. This is, I hope, not a surprise. but it's data that correlates with what we, I think probably most of us believe and most of us experience. So Mickey and I shared a rule of thumb in our book: you can't over-communicate. Maybe people in marketing, maybe people in sales, maybe they can over-communicate. Product development and software, I don't think we can over-communicate. It's a team, software development is a team sport. Maybe we ought to actually talk to each other once a day. So the bottom line, stand-ups matter, and stand-ups held daily and effectively matter most. All right?
So the second speaker we have is Keith Rakow, and the topic is on scalability. Two things you may want to plan for. That's the topic, and that's the secret. Like, what are these two things?
Hopefully I remember to tell you both of them. So, can you hear me without the mic?
Yeah.
I'll stand pretty close to the mic. I'm Keith Rakow, and I have 6 years of Agile experience, mostly on the product owner side, but sometimes I've stepped up and subbed for the Scrum Master too. I'm certified as both. Right now I'm going through a period of reinventing, and I posted my first LinkedIn post after 12 years of membership. It's very out of character for me to speak like this, but I wanted to share my experience around plenty of time to do it over, no time to do it right the first time. How many of you have worked in an environment where that's a problem? I see a couple of hands. I see a lot of hands all of a sudden. You thought about it and it resonated with you, which is great. A couple of areas where I ran into it was in working on a web interface. We didn't factor in that we might want to make our website really work well for mobile users. We didn't plan for mobile friendliness. And all those great arguments that we had between product management and the UX team and the developers and the marketing team, guess what? It wasn't really fun to have those again in later sprints because we had haggled over everything that should go in the viewable frame already, and now we were revisiting it to see what we could take out of the viewable frame, and that competed for velocity against other things that we would rather be doing. The other area where we sort of stepped in it was around international and localization. We made the perfect experience for US English, but we never factored in that German and Spanish, and these were languages that we needed to bring in later, were 30 to 40% longer. And so our buttons were too short and there wasn't enough room in the frame. And guess what? There we were using velocity later on to refactor the interface and bring localization and internationalization in. Plus the code wasn't localization ready. And so Agile, oftentimes we think, we'll have the opportunity to prioritize it and bring it in later, but it's always better if you can sort of think ahead to where you're going. And even if you don't plan it, even if you don't write stories for it, always think of where you're going. And for these two areas in particular, mobile friendliness and internationalization, if your app or your product is a success in the US or on the web, you're definitely going to want to take it mobile or somewhere else in the world. So think about this as you go. And thanks for listening.
Thank you. All right, and the third one is by Jennifer from Intuit. Agile transformation using 3 key Agile practices.
Hello, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So I was most recently a product development engineering manager at Intuit, and I came on to manage a new team in the billing integration space. And they had just started using Agile. They weren't very good at it. They weren't meeting their commitments. But I had come from a web Agile team, and I thought, I got this. This is going to be easy. I'll just do retrospectives, and I'll have the team be able to figure out what they need to do better, and we'll get better, no problem. That didn't really work. We tried everything. We tried creating tasks and subtasks. We tried creating stories that were huge, stories that were small. We still couldn't meet our commitments. And then I took Agile Foundations training from Ian and learned 3 Agile techniques that really changed our team. They were skeptical at first, but I said, let's just try them, and we'll give it a try, and we'll see if they work. The first was flight crews. Instead of each engineer owning a story, I had 2 engineers and 1 QA own the story together. The second part was story huddle. After they were assigned or they took the story and they volunteered for it, they would do a story huddle where they would come up with 5 to 7 tasks and hold each other accountable for those tasks. So they wouldn't be creating 19 subtasks about, I have to do this book, read this training, go to the bathroom. They just did 5 to 7. Bob, I'm going to do the API envelope. Jane, I'm going to write the happy path flow, and Sue is going to write the test automation, and we're going to be done in 2 days. I'll test your code. And so the third Agile technique that we did is we went from 5 columns on the JIRA bar to 3, to do, in progress, and done. And as they worked together, they could see their story go from in progress to done. We would manage very few stories in the in progress column. So if they freed up, they'd go back and pick one up, and we wouldn't put many in the in progress column. So we really managed our work in progress. And the team was able to see through that simple 3-column JIRA board all their stories getting in the done column every 2 weeks, and we would celebrate. And so they got into that rhythm and adopted those as our DNA, and they were very much Agile, fluent, and proficient. So thank you, Ian, for those 3 techniques.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's a great little story about the real-life journey of the team. Great. So now we have the Kiwi problem statement, as well as we have the Intuit problem statement. Let's go forward from there.
It's here. So those techniques that Jennifer was talking about, we do talk on some of those as well. If you're interested, we need Jennifer to come back and really unpack those. Okay, so here we were talking about really trying to go broad to go narrow, right? So now we're moving into this, okay, we've got this problem, and we want to generate lots of ideas. So we're going to try this. So we're going to do something a little different than the problem statement shared with the Kiwi. And we are going to focus on this meetup, right? So here's the problem statement. I'm a meetup attendee. I'm trying to attend the meetup and have an enjoyable experience, but now pick your problem. Now I've thrown out some ideas there. The travel was terrible, I couldn't make it, or I couldn't find this room, or I couldn't find my friends, or some other problem. I can't understand Ian's funny accent, or whatever it is, right? So I want you to pick one of those problems. And then I want you to form your group again. There's a few of you now, so do it at the tables, or ditch those losers and find another group, whatever you'd like to do. And then I'd like you to generate just lots of ideas, right? And I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to do that. Now, the ideas you're generating here are not reasons why this is a problem, right? You're not trying to answer the because thing here. You're trying to come up with a solution to the problem that you've chosen as a group. So if traffic's terrible, what are the solutions that you can think of to help people with that to try and address the problem statement? Now, I'd like you to write those ideas on a post-it. Now, you're all doing this, right? You're all grabbing post-its, you're all writing. As you come up with an idea, I want you to read it to your team. Just briefly to say, hey, this is my idea, right? And then I want you as a team to pay attention. I want you to listen. And I want you to, maybe even use that idea and build on it using the yes and thinking. Right? So this is sort of an active listening technique that we encourage. You listen and you say, oh yes, that's an interesting, albeit crazy idea, and maybe we could do this, right? And so you come up with another idea to build on that. So I'd like you to do that, generate as many ideas as you can, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that, and we can do the lean coffee blocks depending on how we're doing on the energy there. All right, so 2 minutes to do that. Generate as many ideas as you can. Find a team, a few of you together, and see what you can come up with. Don't forget to agree on the problem. Don't try and solve all the world's problems. So pick a problem and work on that. All right, so good. So now I hope you've got a bunch of ideas sitting on your desk there. And let's sort of unpack that a little bit brief. So just let's count. Who had at least one idea? Hands up if your table had at least one idea. Who had 5 ideas? At least 5. Count them, hold them up proudly. Did you have 5 at the back there? Not quite 5? 5? 6? Who had more than 6? What did you guys have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 ideas here? 6? Ron, what was your table?
I think we got 7 or 8.
7 or 8? Well, there you go.
Clear.
All right, and then, do I give you guys count?
We have only 3.
3. What did you guys in the back have?
3.
3, okay. All right, cool. So I literally gave you just like 3 minutes or 4 minutes to do that, and you came up with this many ideas in that amount of time on a problem I just threw at you out there. Imagine if you spend half an hour on this, or an hour on this, on a problem that you're trying to really debrief, and you had more time to discuss it. Who had well, let's just quickly debrief the problem. Which problem did you guys go with? Traffic. Everybody likes traffic. All right, who has what you might say is the wildest idea, the craziest idea? What was your idea?
Meetup shuttle.
A meetup shuttle. So you were gonna. he's like. What you guys have? Sorry, I couldn't hear those.
Actually holding a physical multiple location.
Oh, so do it like multi-location, some sort of video conferencing thing? Interesting. All right, cool. Who else has a wild crazy
Different time
idea?
for the meetup, not having during the busy hours.
Oh, so different time? Okay. Yeah.
Said meet someone to meet up in Parkwood, and they just met and they're in a carpool, so.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. Anything we can do to improve right now? Right? Now, the reason I asked you this sort of who has the wildest idea is because we typically don't ask teams to put constraints on this, right? We might throw it out there and go, what's the craziest thing you can think of? And then we'll back it into something that we might sort of take from there using the yes and methodology, right? But don't start with, okay, let's generate ideas. You've only got a budget of $10 and 15 minutes. So don't give them constraints, and in fact encourage them to just think way out there, right? And then sort of use that to unpack. Aside from the carpooling, I'm trying to help you out here.
Thank you.
What else could we do right now to improve even tonight's meetup? Anything? Anybody have one of those ideas?
Provide beer.
Provide beer? Well, before we hit the traffic? Says Jennifer, who I'm driving to the airport. Doesn't care.
Yes, we had record the meeting.
Record the meeting, right? Which
And we are.
Right, there we go. So you might even find some of these ideas already in play. That's not unusual. All right, so the thing that this begs the question is, well, great, we've got all these ideas, right? We've got 20, 25 ideas across this room right now. Where do we start? Which one is the one that we should start with? Because we don't want to work on them all. And so this is one of our techniques. There are others, but this is a popular one. It's called 2x2 narrowing. And so what you do is you take your ideas and you look at various word pairs. And there's no right or wrong answer to those, but there's some examples there. Is it fast? Is it cheap? Is it whatever? Put those on the axes of these charts and start plotting your ideas on there. And as you do and you run through sort of various iterations of these word pairs, your first idea or ideas will start to emerge that you might want to pursue, right? And again, there are other techniques for doing this. We're not going to go into those today, but suffice it to say, what you're trying to do is now hone in on something that you feel is the right one to start with, or to start experimenting with. Okay, I won't spend any more time on that. Now, just a quick time check. How much time do I have?
Yeah. We have another 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay, we're good. All right, so imagine now that we've taken our problem statement and we meaning me, have brought this problem statement to this thing that we call internally innovation days. Now, innovation days is where this is applied in some of our business units, not all. But think of this like your hackathons or your coach jams or whatever you call that thing where you take the teams away from their work and you let them do this thing. In this case, we take the entire business unit offline for 3 whole days every quarter, and we run this process called Innovation Days. And it is pretty much focused on this design for delight process, right? And depending on where they are, they may have already come up with a problem statement, now they're validating an idea. And that's pretty much where we started with this, right? So we had the problem statement, we had the idea, and we dived into Innovation Days. So remember this is our problem, right? We don't have enough coaches to meet the needs of all of Intuit's global teams. But there's something that we do have that isn't necessarily evident, and that is that I have a bunch of teams. And those teams are all different places on that Agile maturity spectrum. And not just that, they are at different places depending on which practices they bring to bear. So this team might be really good at stand-ups and terrible at writing user stories. And this other team is really good at sprint reviews, but terrible at retrospectives or something like that. And so we get this sort of interesting mix of teams that are good at things and bad at things. And but there's lots of them, right? Because they're the teams. And so the question or the idea is, what if these teams could actually become the coaches? What if they could coach each other? Because they have a lot of them, right? Now, from this was born our idea, Agile Cupid, right? And it's essentially inter-team dating, right? Like inter-team coach dating. This is now where we started Innovation Days, right? And what you're looking at here in the top right-hand corner is this thing called the Next tool. And these boxes, I'm going to sort of give you the sort of highlights here, actually appearing on this tool up here. So you'll see them in live and living color down here, but essentially it's all on one page up there. And so the idea is this, a way to connect the teams so they can help each other on their Agile journeys and coach each other. So the customer that we identify in this case are specifically the Scrum Masters of the teams and the teams themselves, the team members of those teams that are going to receive and give the coaching. The problem that we're experiencing is kind of a summarized version of that problem statement. Right? We're making slow progress due to limited access to the coaching, and the proposed solution is have our teams coach each other in their strength areas, right? In the corresponding weakness area. So that's where you start the process of the last phase here, which is the rapid experimentation, and that's what this is all about. So from there, you start with what we call the leap of faith assumptions. If this turns out to be not true, this whole idea is moot, right? Like we can't do this if these true leap of faith assumptions are invalid. And so the leap of faith assumptions that we started with Agile Cupid were these, right? Number one, teams actually recognize that they have a weakness and they want to improve it. Because if they don't know they have a weakness and they don't want to improve it, then what are they coaching or getting coaching on? Second is that the teams are willing to seek and receive help from somebody who is just in another team and Intuit, not a professional coach, not a whatever, but just another team, another Scrum Master, another team member. Then on the flip side, we have to assume the teams have strength in some of the Agile practices and weakness in others. But if they don't have strengths, then what are they going to coach and what are they going to help other teams with? And then the fourth thing is that they're actually willing to do that. Right? You ever go and ask the average team, they're like, yeah, I'm busy, like I got no time, and right? If they have no time and they're not willing to do this, then this isn't going to work, right? If we're totally relying on coaches. So these are the initial leap of faith assumptions, and you have to sort of think about that. What is it that would really truly make this idea pass or fail if it were or were not true? Okay. So then you move from that leap of faith assumption to a hypothesis. If we do this, then a certain percentage of the people will respond or behave in a certain way, right? So that we can validate that leap of faith assumption. So here's the hypothesis that we started with. So the first one is a demand hypothesis. So if we go to the Scrum Masters and say, hey, do you have strength? and would you be willing to be coached by another team or another Scrum Master, at least 50% of them would commit to do it. So now notice that we're getting very specific now. 50% have to commit to do it, okay? And then what's important here is that this is not something that we survey. We don't go and ask them, would you like to? Do you think it's a good idea? Would you like to buy my product? Does it seem like a good product to you? Oh yeah, seems like a good product, whatever. Notice that the language there says commit to do it, right? So they can't just say, yes, I would. They actually have to pass this bar. Likewise, we look at the supply hypothesis, right? So we need demand, we need supply, and so it's the same question and the same commitment, right? Now, when we talk about commitment here in the no surveys, what we talk about is this idea of currency, right? Currency means that, and let's take it to an extreme example. If we are thinking about developing a new mobile app, we walk out into the street and we show people this mobile app or a prototype, a mocked up prototype or something. We'll get to that in a second. We don't say, do you like it? Do you think it's good? We say, would you be interested in buying my app? And they say yes, and they say, okay, give me $5, right? That's actual currency. But they might be willing to give up something else that indicates that they're committed, right? It might be, okay, give me your email address. Give me your credit card number, and when the app's ready, we'll charge you $5, right? If they're willing to give that up, that's showing a level of commitment and currency rather than just saying, yeah, that seems like a good idea. All right, so it's pretty key in this. Okay, so here's, from the hypothesis, you are now going to create an experiment to validate the hypothesis. And here is the first experiment. So what we did to validate the demand hypothesis is we created a little script, and we as an innovation team kind of walked out into Intuit's campus, and we walked around, and we found teams where they live in their caves or whatever their environments are. We have some eclectic environments in Intuit. And we had the script, and it was literally said, okay, hi, we are from the Agile team, I forget what the exact rating was. We are actually interested in understanding coaching, and we'd like to know whether you have any opportunity areas you'd like to explore in terms of weakness areas. And they would say yes or no. And if they said yes, yeah, we're not really good at stand-ups, right? So we would say, oh, stand-ups, we know the guy that's a really expert in stand-up, right? And we will actually arrange a meeting for you to be coached by that guy. Are you interested, right? And they would say yes, and then we would say, great, we're going to send you a meeting invite, and it'll be next week, and we would actually send them a meeting invite. And now the currency that we were after here was not that we sent it, but that they accepted the meeting, right? Because if you just send them a random invite and they're like decline, tentative, don't care, then we didn't have the currency, right? So we identified the currency as they accepted the meeting. And then we ran this experiment. We went out and talked to Scrum Masters, we ran them, we sent the invites. And the good news was we actually brought that to them, right? We actually came back later and actually coached them on that. And so they got some benefit out of the experiment anyway. We did the same thing for supply in experiment 2. Now, what that then happened, what we learned from that and what the results of the experiment were this. When we did this with the demand experiment, 80% of the people accepted the meeting invite. Remember, we only wanted 50, we got 80% of them were willing to be coached. 75% of them were willing to supply coaching, meaning that we would go in there and say, hey, are you guys really awesome at anything? Oh yeah, we're really great at retrospectives or whatever. Oh yeah, actually we know a team that's really struggling with retrospectives. Would you be willing to go coach them? So that was the other script. 75% said yes, probably even more said yes, but we sent them the meeting invite, 75% accepted and gave us the currency that we wanted, right? They were serious about it, or somewhat serious about it. Okay, so now we've got the results of our experiment. Then you move on to, okay, well, what do? Do we change the idea or pivot to a different idea or a different hypothesis? Do we rethink the whole idea? Or do we keep going? Do we have enough data that says we should move on to the next experiment? So we have the demand, right, 80%. We have the supply, 75%. We keep going. Okay, great. We're keeping going. What's next? Next is we move on to the next leap of faith assumption and the next hypothesis and the next experiment. So here are the next leap of faith assumptions that we started to look at. The first one is, how are we going to know? Right? We've got hundreds of teams. I can't go out all day, every day, and go and ask them hundreds of times. That's going to take too long, and we're a global company. So we need to be able to identify that and do it automatically. Right? We need to gather data through some sort of automated system. And then we're going to have to expose that data in such a way that it can be consumed. So it's not a manual intervention process. And if we can't do those two things, then this is probably not going to work, because I don't have time to go do this because we have no coaches and right? So what we think is now it's time to move into prototype, right? We need to build a prototype. So let's talk about prototypes for a second. What's a prototype?
A rough sketch of anything.
A what?
A rough sketch of anything.
A rough sketch, yeah. Could be a prototype.
Sample, low fidelity sample.
Low fidelity sample.
A tool for helping you do concept validation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So when we think prototype, quite often teams sort of go to, I'm going to build a quick app, right? Or I'm going to mock it up in PowerPoint and pretend like it's an app or something like that. And those are all completely valid. But here are 5 types of prototype that we tend to think about when we talk about it, and you can kind of get a hint from the top right-hand corner there. The first one is a fast cycle sketch test, that's what we call it, which is essentially what you're seeing in the top right. You literally will draw on pieces of paper, this is what the app looks like. And then we'll go into a customer and say, okay, here's screen, borrow this piece of paper. Here's screen 1, right? What do you think? Oh, I kind of want to click here. All right, oh, you click there, here's screen 2, right? When you click there, that's what you get. And we're sort of starting to get a sense of what the customer behavior is in a very crude, fast way. The second thing is what we call a FACO test, which is that it appears to be a real thing, but it's actually fake, right? There's nothing behind the curtain, or what is behind the curtain is manually created, right? So another way is, find a way to deliver this experience for real, but you're doing it manually, right? You haven't written the code, you're going out and, somebody's like fast fingering it to try and pretend like you did a program or an app. Another one might be just a technical test. We need to do some sort of technical validation to prove the technology can work. And you might scale this all the way up to something like a full A/B test in production. You deploy actual code into an actual test environment, right? And so it could be anywhere on that spectrum. But here's the thing. When you think validate and experiment, think up there, right? Think the fastest, simplest thing you can do. So when we built these prototypes, we're thinking, what can we get out to the customers to validate this afternoon? Not in 2 weeks, but as fast as possible. Like rapid prototyping. So what's the easiest, fastest thing that we can do, that we need to do to validate this experiment? So the actual prototype that we built for Agile Cupid was a sort of combination, I would guess, of technical test and, let's say, a bit of FACO test, right? And it looked like this, right? So what we did is we technically did a little bit of scripting to see whether we could actually, reach into Jira and get some data and calculate some of the metrics around that might give us indicators of the outcomes, etc. And then we did a test to see whether we could populate that into an interface. So this was a very quick, crude interface. This is Confluence, our wiki. And what you're looking, and we actually manually entered that, right? So this would, eventually be automatically generated and scripted and everything, but we manually created these wiki pages. So this is the prototype, and so we would show this to a team and say, okay, well, which Agile outcome are you interested in improving, right? Because remember, we're about the outcomes, not necessarily about the practices, but we could have done the same thing at the practice level. And then we'd say, oh, you're interested in improving predictability. Well, on the right-hand side, this is the list of the teams at Intuit that have the best predictability, right? And the link there, you can't tell, but it's a blue hyperlink. If they clicked on that, they would be taken to that team's Jira board. And in that Jira board, they would be able to access the name of the Scrum Master, and the team members, and look at their board and look at their stories and kind of get a sense of how that differs from our team to your team. All right, so this was the prototype that we built. Okay, so again, all of this is happening in 3 days, right? From those ideas, those experiments, to the prototype even, we built that in 3 days. Which kind of leads me now to how do you do all this stuff in reality, in a real environment? And particularly, what has this got to do with Agile? Right? What is Agile and innovation, and how do these things integrate? So the short answer to this is maybe don't integrate them in the beginning. Right? So, Innovation Days is a great example. You can take the teams offline, take them out of their Scrum world, go across the wall into this nice, safe Innovation Days, and do, next tool and D4D and experiments and hypotheses, which is very different than their world of, user stories and sprints and backlogs and that kind of stuff. However, right? That's an interesting place to start, and we do this as well. You still need to take teams out of their sort of daily working environment if you want to generate new and exciting ideas that have nothing to do with their team, or particularly with Innovation Days, the advantage is they get to work with other members of other teams that they don't work with on a daily basis, right? So that's so important. But think of it like this. Let's say that you did Innovation Days. And you validated, somebody comes up with this crazy idea of how to improve traffic for meetups, they run some experiments, they validate those experiments, the end result, they build a little prototype, the end result is keep going, right? Great, so in Intuit, we might say, well, let's take that idea beyond Innovation Days, and let's consider actually taking people out of their core teams and giving them some space, send them off to work in a team environment for a couple of weeks, and develop that idea, right? To go to the next hypothesis, the next prototype. Eventually, this thing's starting to get momentum, right? We're starting to really prove an interesting business case here, and now we're willing to sort of commit a semi-permanent team around this, maybe for the next quarter or the next 6 months or something, to really see if we can take this to the next level. And we're starting to bring in support teams from other parts of the company to help them do that. Now we might sort of launch this product under a sort of Intuit Labs banner, right? It's not one of our core products, but it's showing great promise, so it's called a Labs thing. And then maybe it becomes the next TurboTax, the next QuickBooks, right? Now, what I'm saying here is not that there's some sort of line that I'm going to draw there in terms of a transition from Agile to D4D. What I'm saying is as you go further and further down that list, you're getting closer and closer to business as usual. You're getting closer and closer to teams operating in their standard way on fully fledged products. And they're moving further and further away from the bubble of design for delight and innovation over the other side of the wall. And so what that means is, and I sort of want you to think of this question is, well, what if it wasn't different? What if innovation was the way that we work? What if it was everything that we did and not a separate thing? So what I mean by that is, what if instead of taking, and then your terminology may be different, but in Intuit we break down our initiatives into epics and down into user stories, right? What if we didn't do that? What if we even stopped using this language and we said, actually we don't write user stories, we don't execute those, we take our ideas down into hypotheses and down into experiments. And when you think about it, that's really what Agile is all about, right? It's about getting this value delivered to the customer and validating it. But we often don't make that final leap to this idea that that's what we're doing. We often sort of break it down into, we delivered a unit of work, done. We deliver another unit of work, done. But actually, what we really want to try and embrace is this idea. Whether we use those words of experimental hypothesis or not, that's essentially what we want from our user stories. So this is the way that we sort of tend to think of it. Has anybody heard of the 5 levels of Agile planning? Just me? All right, well, don't worry, you're going to get them now. So with each level in Agile, it's not just about user stories. Each level has meetings and ceremonies associated with it. It has a backlog of something, and it has a time horizon associated with it. Now, down at the lowest level, we tend to have teams, working every 24 hours. They're doing the daily stand-ups. They're doing the story huddles that Jennifer mentioned, and they're getting those things done. And executed and getting that thing ready to be, pushed out the door. They're helping each other out using those flight crews and daily stand-ups. The next thing is now we're looking at the 2 weeks, and this is the sweet spot of Scrum and Agile, right? It's like a 2-week sprint. We have this backlog, and we do the Scrum-like ceremonies, the sprint planning, the backlog grooming, the retrospective, the demo, etc. But now I'm starting to use this language here of a backlog of experiments. A backlog, sprint planning is about planning which experiments we're going to run in the next 2 weeks, right? Keep going up. Now we're talking about the next quarter. There's a backlog, in a traditional Agile sense of, let's call those epics. But now we can talk about a backlog of ideas, a backlog of those leap of faith assumptions that we are thinking we're going to try and break down in the coming sprints. And if we do this sort of, we call this thing Inception, which is our quarterly planning process, where we try and set a baseline plan of what might happen in the next 6 or 7 sprints. And that follow me home, that customer safari is typically where we're going to start, right? So before we start the quarter, we do the follow me homes. We're going to come up with sort of the baseline customer problems, identify those leap of faith assumptions and the ideas, and put those into the plan for the quarter, and then move into sprint planning and break them into experiments, etc. Right? But we're starting to integrate this idea of D4D and Agile together, and we're not abandoning Agile, right? We're essentially just embracing it in a much more intense way. I won't go into this in detail, but suffice it keeps on going up in the next 12 months. What are those key customer problems, those big problem spaces we're trying to solve for? And then even up further, in the next 3 to 5 years, the strategic priorities of the company, and that's where we're sort of identifying those key customers that we're solving for and what their big problems are. All right, so anyway, this is the way that we start to think about integrating D4D and Agile. Here's a picture I kind of throw out there sometimes, which is about missing the Agile mark, right? I see a lot of teams that get into this kind of zone, right? We take our project backlog or our initiative backlog of the next 12 months. Every quarter, we kind of create an epic backlog from the top initiatives, and then in the sprint, we create the story backlog from the top epics, and then we give it to the customer, right? We give those stories to the customer. And why I say it's missing the mark is because if we really embrace that innovation, the D4D, the true Agile mindset, the picture probably looks more like this, right? Where we're essentially saying, hey, look, let's generate a backlog of ideas. Let's break those into hypotheses and get those experiments run as fast as possible. What can we do this afternoon? And then importantly, let's get that feedback back, right? Did we get the customer commitment? And so this really now starts to beg the question, and fundamentally for Agile teams is, am I done when I deploy the software? Or am I done when I get the feedback from the customer and that they're committed to this feature that we are experimenting on? Okay, so enough me yapping on. So the bottom line here, this is I'll sort of summarize it for you. Innovation does need a place to start. So you have to make room for it, a little bit of room, and kind of bring this in somewhere, right? But at the end of the day, you've also got to ask those bigger questions of, how does this become part of how we work? How do we make this an innovation culture, an innovation that's baked in? And think about how your Agile process works, what your teams do day to day, and figure out where those alignments are. They may not be the same as the ones I just laid out for you, but if you sort of like to explore this kind of thing, think about what that looks like and try not to keep it completely separated forever. Okay, so I don't know what works for your team, right? Could be very different than what I'm proposing here, but find something that works and experiment with it. And what I mean by that is perhaps innovate on your innovation process. Bring the design for the light sort of methodology to bear and generate ideas about innovation in your organization, or how you can improve and become an innovative culture, and experiment with those. Come up with those hypotheses about innovation itself. Okay? So that's it. I will put these things up here for you, and I'll throw it up into questions, assuming we have time. I don't know what the
Of course.
yeah,
We have
time is.
some time for
But
questions.
that's it. Cool.
Of course, that's
I'll take questions if you got them.
Mhm.
Or if you're sick of me, you're like, no, the traffic is terrible. Stun them. They're like,
My favorite line was the last, innovate your innovation.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, if you didn't read between the lines there, what we're innovating on here is not a product. Agile Cupid is not a product for Intuit, right? We're innovating on our internal processes. We're applying innovation to the Intuit Agile program. And, don't forget that. You can do that too, whatever your focus is.
The first thought that actually crossed my mind when you explained was, really? Who approved it? Pay for it?
Yeah. Yeah, and when I say, make room for it, you may not be able to take your entire business unit offline for 3 days. I'm sure somebody's going to have a meltdown about that. But what if you spend a couple of hours on a Friday afternoon with your team and just sort of have a look at it and see what happens? And don't forget to feed that loop back to the leadership and say, here's what we tried, this is what worked, this is what didn't. Here's what we'd like to try next time. Write me a check for $1 million. Yeah.
You mentioned inception or sort of mid-range planning.
Yeah.
Do you do a look back after the window is over to see how much the plan changed? And from what you had set out to do?
We might, but to be honest, we're very focused. We're Agile principle based. Agile principle 2, welcome changing requirements, right? We're doing that for the customer's advantage or wording. And so, yeah, we might look back and see if something went horribly wrong. But our general principle is we expect change. We know it's going to change, right? But what we want to do is set a baseline plan, knowing that it's going to change, but then manage to those changes. Whereas I think a lot of the anti-pants that we see, the teams that don't do those kinds of mid-range planning, they tend to be, it seems like we could do all of that, but they haven't really thought it through, and then they realize they're just way overcommitted to the quarter, and then everybody's pissed off towards the end. So we tend to be more focused on, are we on a good trajectory towards the end of the quarter? We're very focused on burn-up charts towards the end of the quarter, looking at fastest and slowest velocity projections, and seeing whether we're going to land in a good place. But the change that's happening is usually, for those of you not familiar with a burn-up chart, I apologize, but the line that you're sort of going towards at the burn-up chart is the scope, right? And the scope is going to flex, and having the line at the top there, which is, we think we can do this much, right? Day 2, it changes. Well, why did it change? Right, the scope went up, and it's not, and they have conversations about that. It's all part of that kind of stuff. I don't know if that got where you're going with that question, but it's very much about moving forward rather than looking back.
Other questions?
They're like, that's it. No, this thing's gone on too long already. Get out of here.
So this is not about sticking to one framework, but try to get the job done the most effective, efficient way without burning the bridges, so you're keeping the teams motivated.
And in terms of how we execute Agile?
In summary, right?
Yes. I mean, so our general philosophy about, which flavor of Agile, the team should use or how they should do it is adhere to the Agile principles, right? Like, I don't care whether you do Scrum or Kanban or mix and match the two or whatever, do what makes sense for your team. I'm going to offer you a bunch of practices from all of those flavors of Agile, but don't forget, right? It's a mix and match, right? Pick the practices that will help, focus on the outcome that you want. Right? I get these calls from leaders across Intuit all the time, and it goes something like this. Ring, ring. Hi, this is Ian. Hi Ian, this is leader X. Can you come and make my team more agile? Right? And my response to those leaders is usually the same. It's something along the lines of, Sure, but I want you to rephrase that request without using the word agile. Because that's not really what they want, right? They're not interested in being more agile. They think agile is the solution to their problems, and it may be, but what they want is quality or employee engagement. So we're always going to try and start with those outcomes and then bring the practices and the components of the Agile program to bear using whatever flavors of Agile and mixing and matching those that makes sense and keep them there.
Right?
Oh, yes. There's another. So there are some lottery tickets. Lottery tickets. It's not that exciting. So I brought you some little swag here, and I have three things that are swag-like. And I put them all in here, which is one of the swag items, so wash it out afterwards. So maybe you can help me by selecting a number. The tickets on each table, so now's your chance to grab those tickets from the empty tables and double your chances of winning. And if you can read the number, of course, read the number.
Everyone have one?
No.
One of the tickets yet? No, not yet. All right.
So fight over them.
Get the tickets over there.
I will give you the option of choosing your own. We have an Intuit mug.
Hey.
We have a mystery black box.
Mystery black.
I believe inside is some sort of fancy USB string hub thing.
Okay.
And then we have this coffee mug thing, which is conveniently full of tickets, and it has a straw, so don't forget the straw. So you
All right.
You can come up and select.
Who doesn't have a ticket yet? Who doesn't have a ticket yet? Everyone has one. Okay. All right. Drum roll. 658-0058.
There it is. All right, you may select which would you like. You want the mystery black box? Always go for the mystery black box. All right. Let's see everyone going here.
All right.
All right.
Another one.
Right, this
658. Yeah, I could.
Yeah, it's all the same.
658-0064.
Dr. Silver.
Anyone? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right, what's it going to be? The mug or the mug? All right. So I don't want to thing called tickets. All right, there you go. All right, the last person gets the thing called tickets. You can either keep the tickets
Yeah,
or...
exactly.
Oh, sorry. All right, here we go.
All right, and the third one for the most exciting project. 658-00.
Just get
6. Anyone?
Again?
0066. No one
Do we
there?
need to draw again? Draw again.
Another one. 658-0048. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to keep the tickets or shall I empty them out? I'll empty them out. There you go.
Maybe you have kids and you need those tickets.
Yeah.
You never know.
I gave one of these away once and I forgot the straw. So I was going to All right.
Cool. Great.
Okay. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Call links there. If you have any other questions.
Are you going to share the slide deck with us?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Could you throw this into the slide share? And
Sure.
Cool. Thank you so much again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good luck for
Last couple minutes. Our quick round of hashtag what did we learn today? Hashtag what did we learn today? Innovate your innovation. Love it. What else? Hashtag what did we learn today?
Translate stories to experiments.
Love that one. Yeah. Quick prototypes. Manage the unmanageable. Big words. Yeah, there you go. I love that one. go broad, go narrow, to go narrow. Yeah.
We're calling the kiwi fruit the wrong.
I
Can't take
know.
sensitive, but sure.
I still don't know what kiwi is. I need another session with them, maybe private.
Replace user stories with experiments. Replace user stories with experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Ideas, hypotheses, experiments rather than epics, initiatives, and user stories.
Love that one. That could be transforming. All right. Anything?
Innovation.
Innovate, innovation. Wow. That's really good.
Follow people home.
Follow people home.
Not in a creepy way. Ask them first.
That's also the wrong example.
That's great. It's always a great exercise, I think, not just for me, for yourself, and for the speaker. So thank you so much for your response.